Okay, so I have gotten a couple of questions about outsourcing and my VA or virtual assistant and just what the whole process looked like. So I wanted to address that in today's video. And so the first couple of steps for getting started and like even just preparing yourself to start working with the VA is to one, make sure that you have your workflows like very outlined and you have a couple of tasks that you know you want to pass off to them. And for those specific tasks that you want to pass off to them, like have a workflow, write out like the step by step way that you want them to actually perform whatever task it is that you want to pass off to them. So one, have the steps written out, like have a template in place that they can just like duplicate, reuse, and check off each step as they go. Um, Two, make sure that's in some sort of like app or software or system that allows both of you guys to see the progress on those tasks at the same time. That can be really, really helpful in terms of clarity of like, what are they working on? How far have they gotten? Do they need to ask specific questions around that task? Making sure that you have like a specific place to do that can be really, really helpful just for communication back and forth. I personally use Asana, but Trello is also a really great place in order to do that. Honeybook, you can assign tasks to your team members, but it is a little bit harder just to share tasks back and forth super easily with like team members. There is a way to like add a team member workspace, but it feels a little bit more complicated. So I would really recommend sticking to either Asana or Trello or ClickUp. Any like project management tool is going to be really great for that. The really great thing about using either of those two is they usually like on the task, like you can comment and tag each other back and forth. So if they have any questions, they can reach out to you there and they don't have to like email you or text you or anything like that. So I highly really recommend using a task system. And then I get asked where I found my VA all the time. My VA, her name is Sarah. She's lovely. She's fully booked. Otherwise, I would recommend her to like every single student. But I found Sarah by asking a couple of like vendors who I'm friends with and other photographers who their virtual assistant was. So that's kind of how I found her. We did do like a discovery call almost. She was asking me what I would initially need help with. And I was sharing with her like what I thought I was going to need help around, asking her about like her process and things like that, how she would get everything set up. Um, just setting like a structure kind of in place and talking about pricing before we actually like formally committed. And so my VA is a contractor. So I am paying her on a monthly basis, depending on the number of hours of work that she's doing for me. So that's the relationship that we currently have. And so a really great question to ask is if they have like a minimum number of hours that they need to be doing for you a certain month or like a max number of hours. I think that that's really just going to depend on their schedule and the way that they take on clients. So definitely just ask the people that you're talking to how they handle that. But for my VA, she will just keep track of how long she's working on my work and will bill me depending on the number of hours that she completes for me every single month. And so she'll just bill me at the end of the month and then I will pay her at the end of the month as well. So that's kind of how that works. I really recommend like starting small. So have just like a handful of tasks that you want your VA to kind of take on. And when you're first like transferring over the tasks to the person for the very first time, I really recommend just doing a quick like Zoom meeting and either sharing your screen and walking them through exactly how it is that you do the tasks, or you can use Loom, Loom, to record yourself, like record your screen as you just go through and do the task on your own if you're already doing it for like a client or something, just on a general week. And then you can kind of like share that video with your VA. Another really great app for recording what it is that you're doing so that you can easily pass it on is Tango, Tango. So it'll have you just again screen record your screen, like doing and clicking everything to complete the task. But then it will go ahead and like generate a PDF of the steps to take. And then you can just like attach that onto you like the task or like the template in Asana or in Trello so that your VA can always refer back to the tutorial to make sure that they're following all the steps and completing the task correctly. So again, I really recommend starting with like 3 to 5 tasks that you want to pass on first. And then obviously, like as you need more help and more support and you feel comfortable with that relationship and like you guys just have a rhythm and a system going, you can add more and more tasks or like hand off more and more tasks to them. But I definitely recommend starting small and know that there is going to be a learning curve. Like it's really hard for somebody to just like completely perfect your process like the very first time that they do it. Chances are they're going to have questions. Chances are you are going to have to provide some sort of feedback after the first couple rounds of them doing something before they really get the hang of what it is that you're looking for, and what it is you're expecting out of them. So just like know that there is generally a little bit of a learning curve. But usually that shouldn't be more than like, I want to say like a month or 2 months, depending on how complex the tasks are that you're passing over. And again, make sure that what you want them to do is very, very well documented because that's going to cut down on the places where there's like mistakes or they're like interpreting the task in a different way than what it is you want them to actually do. Um, Going back to my notes. And so I really recommend, again, when you're first starting out, have an initial Zoom call just to get on the same page about everything. And then from there, if you want to have like check-in Zoom calls, I think that those can be really, really helpful, especially when you're first getting started. So you can kind of just like choose the cadence that you want to do, whether it's like weekly, bi-weekly. Me and my VA are on like a monthly basis now, just to kind of touch base on how everything went over the past month, make sure we kind of know what we are working on and focusing on over the upcoming month. And then we'll make sure that our Zoom meeting is at a time that works for both of us for the next month. But if you need that to be like bi-weekly or even weekly, like start, and then you can always go to less calls as you find that you just get in the rhythm and a good groove of things. And then I also get asked a lot about how initially when we're like getting started, how do I like share my passwords and allow my VA to actually step into some applications? So my VA is in my email inbox. She's in Honeybook. She's in Planoly, which is like an Instagram scheduling situation account platform. And she's also doing my blog post SEO work. So she's in that. She's in Pinterest. She has access to a bunch of different apps that I use in my business, but I can securely share my password with her using LastPass. So that's a really good free like tool to use to be able to securely share your password, so that they don't necessarily see what that is, but then they can copy and paste it and log into your accounts without needing to actually like know your sensitive information. So that has been super helpful. And then another quick tip is to always, like during those check-in calls, I forgot to mention this earlier, is make sure that you're asking them for feedback too of, is what I'm like giving you, is this making sense? Is there any way that we can just optimize this or even make it easier for you or make it quicker for you? Are there any resources that you like would be helpful for you to have? Just like being open to that feedback and being open to even like systemizing your process and streamlining your process even more, so that it's taking both of you guys like less time and effort. Or if there's like something that is just kind of tough and difficult, like open up the space to have those conversations like during your check-in calls. And then the last thing that I'm going to touch on here in this video is tasks that I have outsourced to my VA. This is not a comprehensive list, and this is covering a lot more of what I outsourced to her on the photography side of things. But again, like this is a great starting point or even like middle point. But if you find that there's things that you don't want to personally be doing, then obviously those can be potentially tasks that your VA can take on. Obviously ask them if that's a task that they're willing to do for you before you're like, can you do this for me, please? So like get their consent around it. But these are a couple of things that I have passed on that have been super, super helpful. So we have wedding day photography timeline templates, just based off of like whether or not the couple is doing a first look and the amount of hours of coverage. that they need. But Sarah, my VA, she will actually go in and draft those wedding day timelines in HoneyBook, depending on like the start time, the ceremony time, the reception time, etc., like all of that info. So she'll go ahead and create like a draft file in there, and then I will just like check it over before I send it out to my couples. She also will go through and find all of the websites and Instagram accounts and emails for all of the vendors for wedding clients as well. So I have that info for blog posts, for tagging all of the vendors on social media and just reaching out to them beforehand if I need to. She will actually also draft an email the week of the wedding to go out to the planner, just to ask if there's anything that the planner like needs my help with, or like any specific updates that we might need to know, and just like introduce ourselves to the planner. And then she also drafts an email in my inbox. She'll just pop the template like as a draft. So I see my drafts and I'm like, oh, I need to go and send this to this particular florist, to ask for loose florals for the detail photos. So that's something that she does for me. She takes care of all of the SEO for all of my blog posts and kind of like going through and formatting all of the blog posts. She will make sure that she pins like 10 to 15 pins on Pinterest from all of my blog posts, which is super, super helpful. And then she also will go into Planoly and make sure that every like image that's being scheduled out is like cropped properly, set to auto post, has the right set of hashtags when we were using hashtags. And it's just basically that it's all formatted correctly in there. And recently she has been helping me with creating some reels and some carousel posts just using a Canva template that we have. And she'll create it just based off of like written content that I have. And then she'll go ahead and pop it into Planoly as well. And then something that she has done a little bit more so on the education side of things is she's drafted up podcast pitches for me in my email inbox. So again, we have a template, and she'll find the podcast hosts like email, the name of their podcast, specific things about their podcast, and kind of like pop it into the template, so that I can kind of look it over, personalize it a little bit more, and then hit send. But if you need like help with email inbox management, VA is also a great person that can help you do that. But it does require some like one, having templates in place that they can use, and two, kind of like really like training them for a little bit before you let them like just respond to client stuff. But then again, like if I am out of office and I'm traveling, so in the past I've had Sarah just actually respond to wedding inquiries as well using the template and just customizing it a little bit like based off of what she knows about me. But this is like after years of working together. So those are some of the main tasks that I especially like initially contracted her for. She also does a lot more for me now, especially on the education side of things. And so this is just a really great starting point for you guys. But if you think of a task that could be really, really helpful, like even like scheduling out like client gifts could be another really great thing to have your VA kind of take over for you. Things like that, like loop them into the whole conversation. If you need help just like formatting things, like Sarah will go through and format our Asana card for any single like wedding that gets booked. And then she'll set like due dates for the actual like behind the scenes workflow of everything that we do for weddings too. So that's another really great thing that your VA can help with. But let me know if you guys have any questions. If you have questions about the whole process or getting started, or like specific tasks and having them outsourced to a VA, go ahead and drop your questions in the Facebook group and I would be more than happy to answer them there. Hope this was helpful.